Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Today is the 7th of September, James. The pod doesn't always revolve around Fantasy Premier League. There would be no FPL if there was
Should probably
football.
Change the intro then, shouldn't you?
Yeah, we should. For shows that we do that are not about FPL. But there would be no FPL if there was no football. And so obviously sometimes we go off onto tangents about the wider game of football. And I mentioned the date because of its significance, because it's a 2 years later kind of show.
It is 2 years to the day since we did a very popular podcast on, I guess, the end of Bury Football Club, although as we're about to learn during this podcast, it isn't quite the end as yet. Bury Football Club were expelled from the Football League in late August of 2019 for numerous offences of basically not being able to pay for anything. They were the first club to be expelled from the English football pyramid since Maidstone United in 1992. In that podcast 2 years ago, we went into quite a bit of detail in terms of what happened to Bury and why it happened. We're going to kind of pick up the story a little bit of what's happened since.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously link up to the old pod because it's still relevant in terms of understanding the backstory of how Bury got to where they are. I think it's interesting that it was 2019, obviously August, September. Had COVID not hit in February, March 2020, I feel like this story would have progressed a lot faster than it potentially has. I feel like because of the halting of football for a little while and then no fans being in stadiums and so on, this has been allowed to drag on a little longer than maybe it would have done had there not been this kind of break from COVID.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, probably the first question we should probably ask is, our answer is, do Bury Football Club still exist?
It's a really interesting one. We're going to talk later in the show also about the rise of a Phoenix Club in Bury, as well as the role of the EFL and so on. And that question was the one that came to mind a lot in context of the Phoenix Club, because a lot of people who are opposed to that are saying, I want to support the official original 1885 founded oldest football club in the country type that was the stadium or whatever it may be mindset. But if a football club has no manager, no players, and is not playing any football, what are you supporting at this point? Because all you're supporting is a name which you don't have the ownership or rights to, a crest, and a stadium.
I think we'll come back onto the what's happening with the Phoenix Club and the current club and how the fans feel, because I think that's part of the process of the story. I would describe Bury Football Club in one word: dormant.
Sure.
I think that's an appropriate word. They are there, but they are not there.
Agreed.
Is exactly where it is at the moment. So my question to you, I'm going to attack this quite a bit from a football perspective, and you can drop the business savvy stuff. How is a football club that got thrown out of the football pyramid system, hasn't played for 2 years, has got debts that, depend on where you read, range between 8 million and 15 million pounds, how does it still exist?
So
with no staff, there is no one.
Yeah. There's nothing there. The gates are locked at Gig Lane, and Steve Dale pops up every now and then, and has done recently a little more, probably because of the Phoenix Club stoking some fires.
He's never popped up in Bury. I can assure you of that.
He's non-existent. So there is a limited company that owns Bury Football Club, the Bury Football Club Company Limited, or something along those lines. That's the official organization. They own the rights to the crest, the logo, the brand name. They own the stadium, and so on and so on. When Bury went into a lot of debt, they got to the point where they couldn't pay their bills. There is a mechanism in UK business, and it's in lots of other countries as well, called administration, which is like the pause button. We've spoken about Wigan and so on getting into administration. The pause button is hit when you appoint an administrator to the business, which means now Steve Dale has no control over what is done to the assets of Bury Football Club. And it's in the administrator's interests to find a pathway forward for what is left of this organisation. And the best bet for Bury Football Club, the best solution for them, is to find a buyer, someone who will buy the stadium, buy the naming rights of Bury Football Club, and so on and so on. The administrator's job is to find the best possible deal for the old shareholders, who would be Mr. Dale, and I don't know if there are any other like silent ones, but it is Steve Dale mainly. His problem is obviously that he has whacked on a few personal guarantees on a few of the loans, which means that they can come after him personally for some of the money. And so what he will be looking for, Steve Dale, in what the administrator does, is to find a buyer of the football club that will pay off any debt that he has a personal guarantee on, because otherwise they're going to be coming after him, mate. Otherwise they're going to be coming after him. So quite often, an administrator of any organization, when they're appointed, should be completely independent from anything. Like, they should not give a shit about the old shareholders. They should not give a shit about anything. It's what's best for the organization.
Yeah, I get that.
But obviously, that's not how it works, right? You're appointed by the guy that owns the football club. Like, Steve Dale appointed this guy. You think he's not going to take into consideration a little bit about what Steve Dale wants? Of course he is.
Yeah, he is.
So the administrators were appointed, and since then it's been in their interest. They put the ground up, not for auction, but they were accepting bids on the stadium, and they're still looking to sell the football club as it is. Whilst the club or organisation in companies in administration, you can't do anything to it. HMRC can't wind it up. No creditors can come after it to shut it down, and so on and so on. It's in a protected state, and that's where Bury Football Club is as a business organisation. Now, in the meantime, as well, from a football point of view, they've been reapplying to get back into the Football League as well, and their applications have been rejected a couple of times. So where do they stand? Like, it's almost as if, why would I buy a football club and a stadium that's not in any football league? Doesn't make any sense. So until they can get an application accepted into the Football League,
but they're never going to get one accepted into Football League.
No, well, where do they join? Now, that's the question, and that kind of is the other part of the equation, if you will, the role of the EFL and so on. Like, what are the EFL doing to help save Bury Football Club?
Well, there's nothing that they will do now.
Exactly.
And obviously the independent commission that was actually appointed by the EFL to investigate their own role in what happened with Bury basically found the EFL and the FA guilty of not protecting and stepping in for Bury. For the trailer I did for the podcast, many of you might have seen the comment from Greg Dyke that the FA never got involved in Bury until the club was expelled from the Football League. They had zero involvement in it. But the inquiry also found that basically no matter what the EFL would have done, that Bury would have gone to the wall, basically. There was nothing they could have done to save them because the situation was that bad. However, obviously the EFL completely failed Bury over a number of years before that. The supporters group, Forever Bury, who are a part of trying to buy the football club and the stadium now, although I'm not sure they've got the funds to give the administrators what they want. They were formed in around about 2003 when Bury were having financial problems then. To give you a brief overview, Stuart Day was the chairman for around about 2013. Basically, he was expending beyond the football club's means on some of the wages of the footballers for a team that was knocking about in League One, League Two was astronomical. They were spending way more expenditure on wages to their income and turnover. It was a matter of time before something went bang. And it went bang when obviously Steve Dale, it's Steve Dale, isn't it?
It is Steve Dale.
Bought the football.
Stuart Day, Steve Dale.
Yeah, we had this conversation 2 years ago. I went, oh, this is a nightmare. He bought the football club for £1 late in 2018. And by March, there was already not paying players' wages and stuff like that because they couldn't. And his background was obviously that he had 52 businesses, of which 43 had gone bust. We had a long conversation on that podcast 2 years ago, and I was like, how does that work? So the EFL didn't protect Bury in terms of the stuff that was going on before it went to the wall, basically.
Yeah, exactly that. And so now, as it stands, we're getting to the point where Bury are not going to rejoin the football. If they were rejoining,
zero possibility.
They're going to be joining at the bottom of the pyramid type thing, where they would get accepted again, which is not what they feel. Well, certain people will not feel that that's what should happen to them, but that is what is going to happen.
They applied, obviously, after when they were expelled, they were in League One. So that was obviously at the start of the 1920 season. Basically, it was about 4 games in, and Bury still hadn't completed a fixture because it kept getting pushed back, get this takeover done, etc. Never happened, fell apart. The EFL had set them a deadline. They didn't meet the deadline for a takeover. That's it, done. And that was extended for weeks on end to give Bury as much chance as possible. So obviously they reapplied to go into League Two. We discussed on that podcast 2 years ago, how was that fair? We used the comparison of Bolton Wanderers, who on the very same day also nearly went to the wall as Bury did. Bolton survived, but Bolton were obviously going to get relegated to League Two and were going to be completing fixtures. How was it fair that Bury would rejoin at the same level?
Yeah,
so that was never going to happen. They got declined of that, and they were told, you need to apply with the National League. So then they went and applied with the National League for the season that's just gone, 2021.
Correct.
But it was left quite late in terms of Dell didn't really give a shit, did he? No. Basically. And it was left quite late, but they could never give any financial proof of funds that they could begin to start the season. Be it they were applied obviously at the National League, which is tier 5 of the football pyramid, or the National League North, which is tier 6. Now the Phoenix Club, which we'll talk about a bit later, they've gone in at tier 10. And I would suggest for Bury Football Club to they're going to have to go down to that sort of level, I think.
Yeah.
Like tier 6 is the very best they could expect, like National League North. And I doubt even that high. You're looking at tier 7 or below if it could get back up and running.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Even if they were to, they still need a manager. They still need players. And they still need to start training and building up the infrastructure of everything that you need as a football club to run, you know?
Yeah, as I said, and this news is kind of a week old, so it might be something we say on this actually dates quite quickly. There's a statement on August 26th, I believe, which was released saying that this Forever Bury group has got a backer and who is trying to buy the football club and importantly the stadium, because obviously the administrators have put the stadium up for sale.
Yeah.
So that's a really big deal now in terms of what Bury Football Club's future is, because obviously once there's no stadium, then you've got to find somewhere else to play football. And as we've seen from the Phoenix Football Club, who are sharing with a football club called Radcliffe, which is 2.5 miles outside of Bury. Like there isn't anywhere for Bury Football Club to begin to try and play in Bury. With obviously it's not a big football club, but should they play football again, there's 3,000-4,000 people who are definitely going to want to go and see them. Where could they go and play? There's every chance they'd end up at Radcliffe as well, which isn't big enough for them, really.
No,
so if the stadium goes, if the administrators sell the stadium, and I understand there's been some offers that have been turned down so far, then I think that's game over if they lose Gig Lane.
Yeah, it's a real. What's in the best interest of the football club or Bury is having a stadium. What's in the best interest of the shareholders is selling it to a property developer who'll probably knock it down, build some flats or houses, and off they go, and they make more money.
You've seen this, yeah.
So again, it's like, okay, well, look, to save the company and save the debts and so on, you need more money. If you need more money, then you have to sell it to the highest bidder. The highest bidder is not going to be someone that wants to keep a 6.5 acre site with a stadium that holds a handful of people. No disrespect, but not exactly world class. It's got history. One of the oldest stadiums in the country. It's got nostalgic value, but that doesn't really translate into pounds, shillings, and pence on your profit and loss, mate.
No, it's the only stadium where Bury Football Club have ever played their football. It goes back to, I think, 1885 or so. I mean, the club does have history, right? It won the FA Cup in 1900 and 1903. We spoke on that podcast 2 years ago about big clubs in the kind of surrounding Greater Manchester area. Bury won major trophies before Manchester City or Manchester United. In fact, when Bury were in the top division, first got elected, Manchester United was still Newton Heath.
Wow.
So they have a history that goes back like 135 odd years now. They still hold the joint record for biggest win in an FA Cup final when they beat Derby County 6-0 in 1903. So yes, now it's a small club, but it has a history. And I spoke on that podcast 2 years ago about the kind of emptiness that I felt going to watch Tottenham at Wembley for 18 months or so. These guys have literally never known anything else. There has never been another football stadium to Bury. So they feel even greater belonging to Gig Lane. That's their home. We spoke about that 2 years ago. What's a football club? Because we spoke about the possibility then that they might continue to exist, but without a home. How does that exist? I mean, actually, in Bury's case, they would probably have to go and ground share probably further than Radcliffe and go and share with Stockport County or Rochdale or something like that, which is miles away.
Yeah, really interesting to see what happens with the official club. But in the meantime, the people haven't stood still and just waited for something to happen. Certain fans did club together and have started a Phoenix Club, which has divided opinion within the city. I think some people will say that the fans are fighting. I don't feel like the vibe I got wasn't fighting. Disagreeing is more how I would describe it. Some people are pro Phoenix Club and some people are anti Phoenix Club.
So Phoenix clubs generally have been a really great story within football. We did a podcast for our patrons only last month on AFC Wimbledon, basically going home to Plough Lane. Ironically, they won their first competitive game at Plough Lane this gone weekend against Oxford United. And generally, they come about because of something like that. I mean, Wimbledon Football Club had their identity stolen, basically. So their fans were not going to go to Milton Keynes, so started up a Phoenix Football Club. There are other clubs that have gone to the wall, like Chester, who have reformed. You've got kind of FC United of Manchester, who formed off the back of the Glazers. It's kind of a bringing back of a community and a building of a football club. Bury AFC feels like the first one where a whole community hasn't got together in support of it. And quite simply, the reason why is, think of it like this. Let's say you support West Ham United, Suj, and Gold and Sullivan fuck it up, which they're well capable of doing. Not to the extent that it would go to the wall. But if it did go to the wall and was in this position where it was in administration, didn't play football, but a new football club was formed, West Ham City or something, would you go and support them knowing West Ham United could resurface at any moment?
Yes, but if West Ham resurfaced, I would go back to West Ham.
That's the point. That I think for a
lot
of people,
still my football club. I feel like with Bury AFC, and it's very hard to have an opinion that carries weight when you're not emotionally involved. But I look at it and I think to Bury FC fans, you've got no team, you've got no manager, you're not playing any football, yet someone somewhere is trying to build the Bury brand back up. Go and support it. But I can see that emotional attachment to, but that's not what I signed up for. That's not what I've lived my life supporting. And you're talking dozens and dozens of years for so many people. So it's hard to have that valued opinion without the emotional attachment to it. So I can fully see why certain fans don't feel like they want to get behind it yet. But you really do have to think about the fact that there is nothing, you're supporting something that's hollow. There's no football there.
But it's for the people who have supported Bury, and listen, this is where it's at. A lot of people have gone to go and support Bury AFC, but a lot of people haven't. And for those who haven't, their football club, I said it near the start, they're dormant. They're not dead. They still exist. So while your hope is out there that your own football club could resurface, how do you have the emotional attachment to go and support something else? So you've got a crush, you've got the one side of it who are like, well, my football club is not dead technically yet. If a takeover happens, if they keep hold of Gig Lane, a football club could end up playing there again, possibly even as early as the start of next season at a very low level. You've got the other side of people who are like, miss the whole match day experience.
Yeah.
The whole, what do you do in Bury in a weekend? Well, we used to go to Gig Lane and support Bury Football Club, and the opportunity to now have something to do on your weekends, they play a lot of games on Friday nights, it seems like. On a Friday night, Saturday afternoon, go and support Bury AFC Football Club, a football club, as their motto says, by the fans, for the fans, which is a term we've heard branded about in a lot of things for football talk. A lot of it's nonsense. In this case, it is. But a lot of the fans aren't on board with it because their belief is that this could have waited. This could have waited until there was clarity. Now, you wait and you wait and you wait. And with someone like Steve Dale, honestly, we might still be here this time next year going, Bury Football Club is still dormant. I mean, that's a possibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
We could still be here in 12 months going, they're not dead. They haven't got any staff. They haven't got any players. We don't have to have got a ground anymore, but technically the football club still exists. That's a possibility. And for those people, they can't let go till someone officially says to them, Bury Football Club no longer exists.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. It's the same, the same negative, visceral feeling inside of I can't let go of my football club is equally valid and deep as the person saying, I can't go with my whole weekend without watching any football or supporting a team or going to a stadium. So the same, it's the same desire from inside that's coming for people. They're like, I need something. I either need my old football club back, or I need to go and watch football, have a drink and get behind something and feel a part of something. So it's servicing two different needs. It's why I don't think that the people that are not behind the Phoenix Club, I don't think necessarily are like, you could have waited, but I don't think they think that they've done anything wrong. It's not harming.
No, I don't think they've done anything wrong.
And also vice versa. I think the people that are behind the Phoenix Club understand that people, how they feel. I mean, these are Bury fans that have started AFC, so they understand the emotion on both sides, which is why I wouldn't say they're fighting. They're more of a disagreement on how to proceed. I tell you one person who's really fucking anti the Phoenix Club, Steve Dale, mate. Because some of the shit that he's put out in statements is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Talk about some of these statements. I mean, the one word that stood out that was used, he basically called them fake. But then Bury AFC were not ever particularly saying we are Bury Football Club. We are Bury AFC. We are a football team forming in Bury for the people of Bury to go and watch and support a football team in Bury. Exactly what you said. Everybody who's on board with AFC Bury Bury AFC is a Bury Football Club supporter. Some have decided to go on the journey, some can't. And I think it's a can't. They can't let go of their current football club. In the case of Steve Dale, I think he's one of the most bizarre people I've ever seen involved in football. And if you read the statements that are on Bury's website, I mean, it's delusions of a madman a little bit.
It is. He's. I suppose he doesn't want the Phoenix Club to do well because it takes away from what he has potentially there for the football club and when it comes to sale. But I don't think it's fair to say that the Phoenix Club is a fake necessarily, because they're starting from scratch, right? It's like Wimbledon AFC or what have you. His statement is brilliant. I'm going to read it for you, James.
Please make people stay, mate.
Yeah. If you go on Bury Market, buy a suit off a stall, go home and sew an Armani label in it, does it make it an Armani suit? Or you buy a pair of Calvin Klein spelt with a C instead of a K boxers off another stall, but then there is always the bloke who has a pair of Calvin Klein on when you're changing at the gym. Well, there's your answer spelt incorrectly. A fake
You spell
is a fake.
answer incorrectly. I'd never noticed that.
Theirs.
Oh, there's.
Yeah.
Common mistake.
THEIRS. There's your answer.
Punctuality was definitely not his forte.
A fake is a fake, however you package it. No full stop.
Why did nobody ever proofread these statements that went on the website? And they're still there.
They're still there.
Delete them.
They're awful. The thing is, it's like, all right, mate, sell me an Armani suit, which in the case of what we're talking about right now is give me football. Give me football. Oh, you have no players, you have no manager, and you're not in any league. So how is it fair to then say what they're saying is fake? You have no football. The product is football. You have none, right? The product is not the badge or the crest or the stadium. The product is Saturday, 3:00, 90 minutes, competitive football. You don't have that. They have football. They could be called Bury whatever, could be called Bury Cricket Club. They're playing football, mate. You're not playing football. And it just smacks of childishness,
very much
and
so,
delusion, absolute delusion.
So the in terms of Bury's Twitter and the official website stuff, I mean, basically there was no communication for 6 months or so, basically, or at least 6 months or so, if not more. And then suddenly, as soon as Bury AFC were about to play their first game, there was like statements. There was like 3 statements in about 2 weeks. And one of those was the promise of, oh, we had to stay quiet because of the appeal to get elected into the National League and stuff. And so what you're saying, like, now we're into mid-August and finally you're going to tell people, oh, actually you're not, that you had no chance, no chance.
It was,
stop talking absolute bullshit.
We recorded in September 19, James. They put out a statement at the end of October 19.
Yeah.
And then it was radio silence until August 20.
Oh, okay. It's 10 months.
It's like 10 months of nothing. And that's the time when so much was going on. And obviously, so many people were suffering with COVID and that kind of crisis was happening side by side. Like,
the thing is, it's been a lot of stuff's irresponsible, like saying, you know, we're still a football club, we still exist, yada, yada, yada. And then he goes on tangents about how he's been failed by people. I mean, one of the statements, he goes on to have a rant about the BBC and the proms. What is that all about?
Yeah, delusion.
You'd have to read it to honestly sensate, and they're easy to find. Just go and search Bury Football Club on Twitter. You'll find the statements because they're right near the top. Just go onto the website. He's talking about his football club dying, and then he starts ranting about the BBC, as if the fans want to hear that stuff. Yeah, it's like he's written in a diary or something.
Yeah,
it's just astonishing. Do you think the fact that they're in administration now is good or bad?
Probably good.
We can't be worse than what it was, I guess.
No, I mean, there's someone somewhere will want to buy the brand and the stadium. The hope is that whoever wants to buy the stadium wants to use it as a stadium and rebuild Bury Football Club. But debts of 8 to 15 million at that level is huge. Like, honestly, if I said to you right here, right now, James, you've got 15 million quid in your pocket for a football club. You've got option A, which is to take Bury FC, the original 135-year-old football club, but that 15 million's got to clear down some debt before you can start again. But you will be in tier 7 of the Football League. Or you've got 15 million pounds, James. I've got Bury AFC, no debt, a couple of tiers lower, but that 15 million pounds does not have to be used to clear debt or anything like that. You can use it on whatever you like, my friend. Players, stadium, the lot. You're not going to use that money to pay off debt if you could or would. Why would you? So it's a difficult sell unless there is an emotional tie to Bury Football Club as a business. You're not going to find any Chinese businessmen coming over like you did.
You buy Bury AFC.
Yeah, exactly.
It's there. It's got the players,
and you can spend the money for good, not for bad. Which is
it's in a league. It's playing football. You take it over, and you know, could you build a 4,000 seater stadium with half of that 15 million money and put it back in Bury, and then spend the rest to try and get it through the leagues, at least to say tier 5, tier 6, for example? Yeah, I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly
you'd invest in it, and you never know if it gets up to the Football League, you might see some returns. I mean, to be honest, how many people are chairman or owners of football clubs at that level actually make money?
Oh, very few.
I mean, I don't just mean at the bottom tier. I mean, even in like League One, League Two.
Of course. Yeah.
There ain't going to be many that make profit out of it. And let's be real here. I'll call it out. Steve Dale bought Bury Football Club for £1 because he thought it was an easy win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's remember that a week before Bury were expelled from the football club, he turned down an offer to take over the football club that would have, got him millions back on his investment, and he turned it down because he believed in the final week he could make more money.
Yeah, that's right.
Ultimately, as much as the EFL failed them, he turned down a bid that would have saved the football club.
Yep. And that's a good segue into the EFL, James. Now, Debbie, Jevons, the chairperson, and so on and so on, and everybody that goes along with it. It's a big debate about the role of the EFL. Now, you did say they were found guilty to have been negligent, in the sense that they didn't check whether Steve Dale had the money to run the football club and pay the wages. They didn't ask for proof of funds, and they didn't go through the rigorous checks that they should do. And what? There's no comeback for the EFL or the FA or anything along those lines. We've got loads of other clubs that are in similar situations now with the EFL. It really does beg the question, what is the role of the EFL in managing finances of clubs? You're seeing Derby now with their financial fair play situation as well. Wigan, what's happened there? They don't seem to have any teeth in this fight.
No, the only thing I wonder is, do we think what's happened to Bury, to Macclesfield Town, which is a subject I think we'll revisit at some point, what's happened at Wigan, particularly those three clubs, has saved some others? Because there might be, since what's happened with Bury, there might be a lot of takeovers that we've never heard of that were turned down.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a possibility. And we'll just never know, because finally they've stepped up and gone, no, you need to do the fit and proper persons test. I mean, it's scandalous to look back on it and look at Steve Dale's business history to know that he was allowed a football club. Just statistically, you'd look at that the day he took over and went, well, there's an 80% chance here that Bury Football Club will fold, just based on his history in business. And as he said himself, he'd never been to Bury. It's not a problem for him to leave Bury. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't care. It's nothing to him.
The situation with the EFL and their role in governance of takeovers, finances, and so on really begs the question: what is a football club? It's one of the things that's in my mind more than anything else. What is a football club at its heart, and therefore how should it be managed, or how should it be governed, or what rules and regulations should apply to a football club? And the reason I ask the question, James, is because from a legal point of view, a football club is a private company. It's a private company owned by one or more shareholders that operates as a business. Money in, money out, simple as that. But the impact of it being successful or not successful is not necessarily on the owners of the business. Sure, if a football club goes bust and an owner loses all of their money, like in the sense that Steve Dale was going to lose a fair few quid, it's not ideal. But the impact on non-shareholders is far greater, like the supporters and the fans of the clubs and the communities that they serve. Like, you're talking something as simple as the guy that was making a living with a burger van outside the stadium, for example, on a Saturday, and that kind of thing. You look at, you could go to a clothes store, right? I don't know, any old clothes shop where you might go and buy maybe Armani, right? You could go to Armani. You might not. You probably sew in your labels, maybe, mate. But if they went bust, there's a private company owned by Mr. Armani, for argument's sake. Probably not. They're probably listed on a stock exchange somewhere, but privately owned. Let's say Mr. Armani down in Tottenham. You're his customer. You're a fan of his, right? You only go and buy your clothes there. You've been buying your clothes there for 20 years, It's his business, though. If he goes bust in his little shop selling you his suits for whatever reason, you can go next door to Mr. Calvin Klein's and buy your suits from there or what have you. In the sense of a football club, you can't go up the road to Arsenal. You're not going to go to Enfield Town. But his shop going bust.
That's how a lot of Bury fans feel now about the AFC club, right?
Has such a wider impact on the community and people that I don't feel like they should live under the same governance rules as private limited companies should, where it's like, it's your rodeo, you own it. If you go bust, it's on you, and tough shit, you're the one that suffers. Because more people than the owner of the football club suffer. In a business, of course, people get laid off if a company goes under and what have you. The impact is still big, but there's less of a community focus than there is with football clubs. And the fact that the EFL seems so toothless in financial fair play and being able to add any level of governance is interesting to me. And
we've spoken about really football reform loads of times, right?
Yeah, football clubs cannot be classified as private businesses, or should not be, in my mind, classified in the same way that any old private limited company is. There has to be some other level of accountability, especially as you go up the ladder, because of the bigger, wider impact that they have. There needs to be a higher degree of governance put on them. And the EFL, when things go wrong with financial fair play and so on, have to have more powers to be able to step in.
Football clubs mean too much to too many people. The reality is, unfortunately, you cannot compare Armani with Bury Football Club.
Of course.
Can't. It's the emotional attachment. Do you know what?
Exactly.
People may well be disappointed, but they will not walk down the streets naked. They will go and buy other clubs.
Correct.
Other clothes. Bury football fans still feel naked.
Correct.
Got their club.
Yeah,
it's a major difference. I mean, to define what is a football club, unfortunately, you have to strip that down and you have to draw a line somewhere, because and it's probably somewhere through the middle of the championship, the difference between business and something that's at the heart of the community of where these clubs are at. Because unfortunately, my club, your club, Suj, we support Tottenham and West Ham respectively. It's a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business.
It is.
At the end of the day, it's our football club, but we're also very, very lucky to know that, and I think kind of where that line is in terms of business and community club, there are, of the 72 clubs in the EFL, there are probably 55 of them roughly that at any point suddenly bang could go.
As a general
stuff behind the scenes we're not aware of.
The bigger the business, the longer the runway you potentially have. Like I've seen it in my years running it's coming up 16 years more than when the first couple of years it was like month to month, mate. It could be what happens this month means we're bust next month. Then you kind of end up quarter to quarter, and you think if this 3 months is good. If things go badly, we've got a 3-month runway. Then you end up with 6 months. Like now, if things were to go bad, it would be at least a year before we'd be shutting the doors or whatever, because we could do things to rectify it. The same with big football clubs. Like things go badly at West Ham, there's a long runway before things would actually go completely pop, and B, because of the size of the club, there's an asset that someone wants. If you go down into League One, we are talking month to month and quarter to quarter, and that's where it's dangerous, where you have no runway of time to solve problems. It's like if something goes wrong, first you have to react to it and decide like how are we going to rectify it, and then you kind of think, okay, how do we modify it, sell players or whatever. These clubs have no time. That's the biggest issue that they have, and that's where the concern is. Like, hang on a second, suddenly you go from 1 month paying players to the next month, actually shit, we've got no money in the bank. There needs to be a higher level of governance and oversight, and they can't be operated as private companies. Now, the downside of that, to point people to another podcast, we talked about the 51-49 rule that exists in Germany on a people's poll a while ago, post Super League, and how do we change ownership so that clubs can't behave however the hell they want. Would you see the same level of investment if owners of football clubs had to give that level of oversight and so on? So there is still a question around whether more oversight would be good or bad for the game. But I think ultimately, if it stopped more clubs going bust, it has to be good.
If you said to any Bury fan now who are still pining for their original football club to return, look, you're going to return, you will never get into the Football League again, they'll take that.
Yeah.
Of course you would. It's more important than not having a football club at all. You have to split it in terms of kind of fan engagement and ownership, and we've spoken about this, and even in the Premier League we've seen off the back of the Super League the idea of kind of fan voice even at the top table, to at least just have a say. It doesn't mean who plays on a Saturday, just have a say in certain decisions, like, no, you're not going to leave the Premier League, or you're not going to leave the FA Cup, you're not going to go and play in this league, you're not going to change the crest or the kit colours and stuff like that. At a lower level, yeah, absolutely, it should be fan engagement. I would like to see it probably League One and below, that it becomes almost law requirement to protect these clubs, arguably in the Championship as well. The problem with the Championship is, and how close it is to the Premier League, you've got clubs like Fulham and Norwich. Fulham and Norwich won't play each other for the next 50 years because they just keep going up and, up and down past each other. But there's a lot of clubs even in the Championship who do need protecting. But I think League One and below, it would be nice that it's got to have an involvement. I think it should become law to help protect these clubs. Because at that point, when Steve Dale goes and buys the football club for £1, you could say the EFL never completed any checks or anything. Everything was done before the EFL even knew about it. Now, that the EFL would have to be notified and stuff like that. So, but if the Bury fans have been involved and they looked at his business history and went, oh yeah, shit, 42 of his 53 businesses have gone bust, probably go, I need to sit down with this guy first. We need to talk to him and find what's going on. Whereas Stuart Day, obviously, he tried to kind of chase the dream a little bit.
Yep. And not just that, but if you talk about some of the statements that he said he made at the time that he was buying the club, things like, I am never, I bought Bury Football Club, but I never said that I would be an ATM for it. I never bought it with the intention of, investing loads of money. And he's really trying to cover his arse with all of that kind of stuff. You're like, well, maybe don't buy the club then. Do you know what I mean? At this point, if you're buying the club, but
he was looking for a quick win, and a football club died because of it. And I realize it's not 100% Steve Dale's fault. It's kind of, you listen to Bury fans and then realize, yeah, listen, I mean, it's like a caricature. It's not even real, right? The way he speaks, them statements on the website, you can't treat the man seriously. But there were things that happened before he got into the football club, like from Stuart Day and stuff, which is their fault. It's a collective. The EFL, Stuart Day, Steve Dale. I mean, ultimately, for me, the ultimate blame lays with Steve Dale, because, as I said, there was a deal on the table a week before, and he should have taken it. And he didn't take it because he thought he could make more money out of the football club. But if he'd have had any ounce of football understanding, he would have said, do you know what, I've made money here, get out of here. But he thought he could make more. Greedy bastard.
Yeah.
Reality.
And this story will trundle on, and fingers crossed, if we're coming back to it and revisiting it in 2 years' time, then we are doing it with a Bury Football Club and a Bury AFC to talk about, because we obviously want Bury Football Club to re-emerge and be there for the community.
I'd like to throw something out there, and I don't know if it's ever been spoken of in Bury, and if anyone happens to be listening who's a Bury fan, like let us know and stuff. But if they could get hold of Gig Lane, this Bury Forever group established 1885, and with the backer that they've got, who we don't know who it is, so we don't know if they've got any money or not properly. If they could get hold of the stadium, rather than reapplying to join at tier 7 or something, couldn't they just merge with Bury AFC?
It's probably what would happen, mate.
And Bury AFC just take the A out of their name. But I don't know if that could happen. I mean, would the people who now follow Bury AFC, would they want that? I mean, presumably they would, right? Yeah. If you just went, look, run to the end of the season, and then we're gonna change the name in the summer back to Bury Football Club, and it goes back to play it, rather than trying to start everything again new. they've got the ground. It's on the ground. And everybody that supports Bury AFC was a supporter of Bury FC, or at least 99% of them. So surely it's there on the ground to start, right? That seems like the right solution for me. And it also then stops the infighting between the town with the people who didn't want the football club. Maybe then they would look at it and be thankful that this Phoenix club started to give them a start.
A head start.
They're currently in the Northwest Counties League. It's basically tier 10. Now, they didn't go up last year because the season got abandoned. They only ended up playing 8 games at that level because of COVID, etc. The season finally got postponed in February. There are, I think, 6 games into the new season. They're top of the league. You would expect them to get promoted through the leagues, at least up to sort of tier 7 quite quickly. Other Phoenix clubs have. You would expect them to do so as well. I mean, we've got 1,000 members paying £5 a month. 60 grand, right? Guaranteed into the football club. Other football clubs at that level are not getting that, right?
Yeah, agreed. 100%. Yeah.
So they should be ahead of everyone else at that level. And obviously the gates that they're getting are bigger than anybody else as well, right? Even if it's just 1,000, it's a lot more than most people are getting at that level, right? I mean, some of the teams they're playing at that level have basically just got a kind of a fence or a bit of tape around the side of the pitch, right? It's nothing. Yeah. So they can get 4,000 in the ground technically at the moment. I understand there has been a bit of trouble at a few games recently, with pitch invasions with last minute goals and stuff, and they're trying to sort out a bit of a stewarding situation. But they'll get that, right? I mean, it's nice to hear the stories of like their first game in the league, in the Northwest Counties, their first competitive league game. They were 2-1 down in the last minute and won 3-2. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
And you've got that, oh my God, I haven't celebrated a goal for a year or so.
Yeah, forget a win even.
But I honestly, I do understand the people that are still pining for their football club and won't go and support them. I think it's really unfortunate that there's you look at online, even responses to social media stuff of Bury AFC, and there's obviously a lot of Bury Football Club fans who are bitter about it. And it shouldn't be. The premise of Bury AFC was to try and give the people a football club and a team to support. And I think the choice was there. Either go and support it or don't. The happy ending that would be amazing, I think, is if someone can still say Bury Football Club and Bury Football Club just takes over Bury AFC.
Yeah, agreed. And for those that are interested in learning a little bit more about Bury AFC, and if you're in the UK and have access to BBC iPlayer, there's a great little documentary more about AFC than it is about necessarily what happened with Steve Dale.
Who was the chairman? Chris
Matthews.
So you know he's not the chairman anymore.
Oh, is he not?
No. And depending on what you read, so if anyone's seen that BBC program, basically it's him and a few others that kind of started a football club from scratch. It's incredible, actually, what they achieved.
It's really interesting to watch.
But after, obviously, the season was called off in COVID, he stepped down. But there is some belief that he was pushed. The chairman in charge now is a guy called Marcel de Mattis. You can find quite easily on Twitter. Do you know how many Twitter followers he's got?
Tell me.
It's about 120.
Okay, I'll tweet him.
Might do.
Yeah.
Listen to this, Marcel, or maybe it's Markle. I don't know. But that football club will go through the leagues with or without its original.
Yeah, indeed. Generally, when we do record pods, we don't ask for a lot of likes and shares. But with this story particularly in mind, if you have enjoyed this pod and you are on the old Twitter, head over to Planet FPL Pod and give it a little bit of a retweet, because I do think this is a story that needs to be spread as far and wide as possible for no other reason than maybe the conversation about how football clubs are managed gets spread and the conversation keeps going, because we don't want to see more clubs in the graveyard. So, yeah, if you have enjoyed the pod, please do give it a share. And, of course, there is so much content out there around Bury. Head over to Bury FC's website for a laugh and read some of the statements.
You have to. If there's one thing you do today off the back of this, you have to read the statements on the website. They're astonishing. And you'll entertain yourself for the afternoon. James, do you want to tell the listeners what they've got to look forward to for the rest of the week now? Yeah, September the 7th, 2022. What happened to Bury? Free. Tomorrow, Sky Fantasy Football podcast, down a detailed look fixture analysis. It's essentially for those in Sky Fantasy at the moment. It's basically wild card time. Thursday clash of correspondence. That's Watford versus Wolves with 6th goal Bradley Parker. The two teams who have got the best next 3 fixtures, and I think in Wolves' case particularly, they've got a brilliant run of 11 fixtures. Friday, I'll be streaming on YouTube. Ask James, 3 o'clock, deadline stream, 10 a.m. Saturday morning. Do you want to do the patron spiel or shall I do it?
I'll do the patron spiel.
Go on,
if you want to, do you want me to give all the Patreon pods as well?
I'll do that bit. You do the
spiel
pods,
and then I'll do the give us your money bit.
You go first.
If you want to find out more about how to support this podcast, head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. Cash leagues, Slack channel, additional podcasts every day, such as
quiz today with the Q&A yesterday. Tottenham, I'll focus on our 2 clubs tomorrow. Another Sky podcast on Thursday, looking at final drafts and our game week 4 preview of everything on Friday.
Lovely, jubbly.
And you can become a member of Bury AFC for £5 a month.
Yeah, if you'd like to. I think at some point, James, we're going to sponsor a lower non-league football club.
You know what? I thought about this, honestly, because I did see they do like match sponsorships and match ball sponsorships and stuff like that. But I couldn't find what the price was. I thought that would be cool.
Yeah, we may even do it one day. Listeners, thank you so much for your support and sharing the show. Stay safe wherever you are. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.